back to Close to Broke, everyone. My name is Kieran, and today we are back at the Gardens Casino. It's been some time since you guys have last seen me here, as you guys can see from just above me, and we're doing something different. We're playing in a game that we've never played, at least not on the vlog before. I think it's something that's new since the whole COVID situation, and that's the 5-5-10 game here. 800 cap, but I think we'll get by that pretty easily. Otherwise, let's hop into today's session. Let's have some fun. Couple of things that I have to mention before we get into today's video. A massive announcement, and something that I've been working quite some time with, and I couldn't have done it without the unbelievable, unwavering support from the lovely folks that are watching this vlog at home. We got our first ever West Coast meetup game of this year, and it's gonna be at the one and only Hustler Casino. It's gonna be October 15th. I'm very excited to host it there. It'll be from 1 to 7 p.m. And we're gonna be playing very friendly stakes of 1-2. I think we're gonna do a pretty deep stack, spread. Should be a ton of fun. You guys know that when we throw down with the bang, so expect some splash pots, expect some fun little giveaways. I've got a lot in store, and this is kind of my big bang as we get to 20,000 subs. So let's play some poker. Let's get to getting going, I guess. Thank you guys as always. Let's do it.
In this very first hand, we are in one of those said bomb pots, and we find ourselves 6 ways, $25 from each person. We're going to a flop that comes ace, king, 6, 3 diamonds. Not a great flop for anybody that doesn't have 2 diamonds, and luckily for me, I don't got to worry about that. We flopped a flush, and that's pretty hard to do. I'd imagine my opponent flopping a flush would be even more difficult. With the action on me, I'm in the big blind position, and I decide to lead out here for $55. Trying to build the size of the pot and allowing myself to, get raised and not, c-bet massive and have to call a massive raise. The player directly to my left calls, and an older gentleman decides to call as well. And we're going off to a turn card that is kind of scary at the beginning as it comes to 6 of spades. Well, I'd assume, honestly, that most ace, or whatever sets probably raise this flop just because we're in a bomb pot. So it's a little bit of a scary card, but, not too worried about it. I decide to bid out here for value once again for $150. And once again, both players make the call. At this point, I'm putting one of my opponents on a better diamond draw if they're looking to suck out. So barring a non-diamond or non-double board pairing river, I'm pretty much going to blast off. Luckily for us, we get the brick of all bricks as it comes with 3 of spades. There's a little bit of a confusion, as you guys can see for most of the hand, is I'm counting out my stack because the gentleman to my left immediately, kind of let me know and let the table know that 800 is a max. I did have a little more in my stack at the time, so I'm trying to make sure that I follow the rules accordingly and that I take off any chips that are in excess of $800 to start the hand. With somewhere in the neighborhood of $650, why not go crazy here and just go for gusto? Just bet the size of the pot. I'm going all in for $650. The action's on the player to my left, who pretty quickly makes a fold, and we get snap called by the older gentleman. I mean, I could not even have blinked fast enough, and he is so confident, and he flips over pocket jacks. No diamond, mind you. Yeah. I mean, wow. We're good if we didn't catch that part. But calling us down that light, third pair, no diamond, flush board, paired board. I mean, what do you even beat? I don't know. I guess if he was going to call anybody, calling me is probably the only person you can call, because I could have a bluff there somehow. Either way, we're going to go ahead and take this very first pot down. Excited to start off on the right foot with a full double up. The opponent did have a little less than me. He had somewhere in the neighborhood of $550 or so. Anyways, let's take it, move on. Moving along, this next hand takes place like 4 or 5 orbits from the last hand. We've been fairly card dead, spot dead, haven't been seeing many flops. Luckily for us, we pick up king, queen offsuit from here from early position. I race to $30 as there is no straddle on in this hand. The older gentleman from the aforementioned hand decides to make the call from middle position, and a gentleman from the blinds calls as well. We're going off to a flop that comes 6-5 deuce rainbow. With the action on me after it is checked over, I decide to fire $40 into the abyss. I don't like this bet for several reasons, mostly because this is not a board I'm going to have very many nut range advantages, some may say. And moreover, I'm just never getting this older guy to fold anything better ever, as you guys saw from the last hand. So I think this is a pretty easy hand where we could just check, give up, or check, evaluate, I guess. But luckily we get bailed out. There's no reason to continue the charade as the gentleman immediately raises to $300. Not going to be floating with king high for a massive raise size. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this hand in the muck, and he shows 4-3 offsuit for the flopped nuts with 4-3 3 off. 4 high pre-flop calling. We love to see it. Buckle up, guys. I could not say this enough in this session, but we've got ourselves quite the ride that we have to get ready to just... There's some poker that's going to be played in this session.
Okay, so you might be asking yourself, Kieran, you're 2 hands into the session. How the hell can you have a mid-session update? I haven't played a single hand in about 90 minutes trying. I can't even raise and like lose, so could be worse. Could be raising and just losing all the hands, but can't even do that. So we're just kind of working with what we got. The table dynamics of this game are unbelievable. Bear with me as I try to explain it. Every time a player leaves the game, your mandatory $25 bond pot. Every time a new player joins the game, mandatory bond pot. Every time a player leaves to go somewhere and then comes back after like a dinner break, mandatory bond pot. Every dealer change, mandatory bond pot. It's ridiculous, honestly. So we did, blind down a little bit technically. I don't know, we lost 200 to 300 in bond pots instantly. So I don't know, it could be better, it could be worse. Anyways, I'm gonna hop right back into the session. Let's hop into this stuff that you guys love.
Well, it's been nearly 90 minutes since I've last played a hand. Things are really slowing down, and although we doubled up on the first hand, not much to report since the last one. As we mentioned, not a lot of things going my way in the bomb pots, but hopefully this next pot helps us out. There is no straddle on in this hand. Late position makes it $35 to go. The small blind calls, and I find myself in the third blind, which is $10, and I make the call after I look down at 9-7 offsuit. A little one camper connector situation. We'll take it. We're going off to a flop that comes 10-6-3 with 2 diamonds. With the action checked over to the initial raiser, I suspect that he should probably be checking back this flop. Not going to be great for his range, and getting called by the blinds in 2 spots probably going to favor us, and I'm assuming he doesn't want to see much resistance. And we're going off to a turn card that is fairly helpful for us as it comes to Jack of Diamonds. It adds equity in the sense that we now pick up a flush draw, but also it's probably going to be better for my range than the initial raiser's range. And the small blind, sure, he can have some strong hands in this range as well, but when he decides to check, I pretty much cancel out most of his value. So I take over the reins of the hand. I decide to bet 2/3 or 3/4 of the pot here by betting $75. Looking to get all better ace highs, king highs, and random hands that have pretty strong equity to fold. And I'm also very much ready and understanding of the fact that I'm probably going to have to unload a barrel on the third street if I want to win this hand if I'm called. And luckily for us, it won't come to any more blood. Both players make the fold, and just like that, we're raking in another pot. As I'm slowly realizing in these games, it kind of pays a lot to just be patient and kind of pick your spots. In this next hand, a fun player that's honestly making the table good vibes, at least for the whole night. He's been talking a lot, making the environment fun, putting the $40 straddle on. He decides to limp in here for $20 as I am in the straddle this hand. The player next to act, who's definitely a reasonable player, decides to isolate his raise to $90. With the action folded over to the big blind or the third blind, he decides to make the cold call for $90, and the action is now on me in the straddle. We look down at ace-5 offsuit. I mean, this is a really crappy hand and not something that we want to be going out of position and just calling here. I think that's just going to bloat the size of the pot, and I have no aggression, and it's very hard to win with ace-5 offsuit post-flop, especially out of position against an isolation raise. So let's use the bit of image that we've created to this point. We look like an it. I haven't been able to play any hands. The one time I did, I flopped the frickin' flush. So I decided to throw out the old 3-bet here to $420. This is a big sizing, and obviously we have to go that big because there is a caller in between the initial isolator and myself. Luckily for us, the person that's been fairly limp call happy gets out of the way. The initial raiser decides to make the call, which again, not great because we're out of position. Luckily the blind folds and we're going off to a flop. Probably going to have to shut down on most flops that don't help us, but the flop is pretty meh as it comes 10-6-3 rainbow. Again, our opponent can have all the pocket 10s here, but otherwise I'm going to have all of the over pairs. Like I talk about balancing my range, blah, blah, blah. I probably just bet here. Seems like good. I mean, I have the aggression, so why not continue to blast off and maybe get him to fold? I bet $375, and I understand that if I get called here, I'm going to have to jam every turn card. That's the only way I can save this hand and try to get a bluff through. Luckily for us, after quite a bit of tanking, our opponent inevitably makes the fold. Aggression pays dividends, as you guys can see. Luckily for us, our ridiculously suicidal play there worked out in our favor. Either way, let's move right along. This next hand is a pretty fun one, as early position makes it $30 to go. I'm next to act, and we pick up pocket jiggities. Pocket jacks, why not 3-bet? That seems pretty mandatory. I'm making $100 to go, and we go no less than 4 ways to a flop after the button, the small blind, and the initial raiser all make the call. And the flop comes queen 8-4 with 2 spades and a diamond. All right, this is not the worst flop in the world, but again, not the best one ever. It's going to be really hard to bet in 4 different opponents in one hand. Somebody's got to have something reasonable, so why not keep all the random hands that I'm way ahead of either way in or turn my hand into a bluff? We just need to get the showdown, really. We're going to a turn card that comes a 9 of clubs. We now pick up a gut shot to go along with our middle pair. The action check through once again. We're feeling pretty confident of our holding. The river card comes a brick as it comes a deuce of clubs. The weird thing here is that the small blind decides to lead out for $240. With the action on me now, I've put myself in a difficult situation. We've under-repped our hand. We have significantly better than what we're really showing, and we have a really good bluff catcher. I'd imagine at some point my opponent would be trying to bet with some kind of queen, right? I feel like the turn card after everyone checks through, it's probably a good time to charge a bunch of draws. So I'm not really, buying what he's selling, so I end up making the call. Luckily, the gentleman on the button decides to fold. Our opponent is a little hesitant to show his hand. He says he has 1 pair, and I just say, hey, I called you. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I'm being slow rolled. I don't play these games enough, and I've seen enough slow rolls in today's game to be a little wary. Our opponent ends up showing 2 red 7s. So yeah, I don't know what that was. Maybe he turned his hand into a bluff. It's hard to really tell. Luckily for us, we are going to take this one down. I am surprised to see what the comment section will say in this one. I don't know. With the flush draw missing, feels like a pretty easy call, and the way we played our hand, I guess. But either way, happy to take another pot in my direction. These pots are coming few and far between, but they are coming, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. This following hand, the cutoff makes it $60 to go, as the straddle has now been mandatory for the most part. I find myself on the button with pocket 3s, going to go ahead and make the call. I believe the big blind makes the call. We're going off to a flop 3 ways that comes 9, 7, 3, 2 hearts, and a spade. Bingo, bango, bongo. We flop ourselves bottom set on a really coordinated board texture. With the action on the initial raiser, he decides to c-bet $280. Well, I think at this point, slow playing would be goofy. We're playing a game where the biggest blind is $800, so the stacks aren't that deep. It's good to just try to get money in the middle, try to get all the piles in the middle, and, see the run out. I decided to raise to $300, and my opponent snap folds. And then it hit me. The big blind didn't call. I made a ridiculously large raise for no reason. I'm upset. I'm kicking myself. I wish I noticed that. But either way, I guess it doesn't matter. He was probably folding to a raise anyways. But, I wouldn't have raised in position against one player. And that's the point, I guess. Either way, moving on. It's getting late. I think I'm just getting a little tired. The straddle is still on in this next hand. Middle position makes it $60 to go. The button calls, the small blind calls as well, and I find myself in the blinds, and I decide to peel one off here with ace 4 of clubs. We're going off to a flop that comes ace, king 6 with 2 hearts and a diamond. Outstanding flop as we pick up top pair, and that's pretty hard to do in poker, right? With the action checked over to the initial raiser, a little bit worrisome when he decides to c-bet this board. Makes it $100 to go. The action folded back to me, never folding top pair. We're going off to a turn card that comes at 3 of spades. I check it over to my opponent, and he pretty quickly decides to check it back. And we're going off to a river card, pretty happy with our holding. That comes a 9 of diamonds. Well, there's already a pretty decent chunk of money in the middle, nearly like $500 or $400 or whatever. But the question is how do we get called by worse? I think by betting a third pot or half pot, we just value on ourselves a ton. But I think that making a little blocker bet can either induce an opponent to bluff here with the missed hearts or get him to call off super light. It's fun to do these little blocker bets when you have a hand as strong as top pair, and, it balances for the times that you do it with weaker hands. I put out a little feeler bet, blocker bet of sorts of $50, and our opponent thinks about it for quite some time before eventually deciding on a fold. Like I mentioned, I was very confident in my read at the moment. That's a cool thing about these little blocker bets is you can really induce or get your opponents to do something crazy because they can just take your bet. They can just perceive it as weakness. So I don't know if you guys never tried it out. Maybe try it on a couple river spots. It's worked out for me recently, at least. By this point, I'm getting very, very tired. It is nearing 2 o'clock in the morning, and that is past my bedtime. But the game is good enough, and while these people are here, I should probably stay myself. Everybody at the table that's fun at least has mentioned that this is probably their last hand, so it's mine as well, I suppose. But we look down at King, Queen of Hearts. I'd be a nit not to be raising a hand this strong, so I make it $60 to go. The older gentleman, who's been a ton of fun to play with, decides to make the call for middle position. And the straddle makes a call as well. We're going out to a flop that's okay, as it comes Jack, Jack 10 with 2 clubs and a heart. The action check to me, I end up making a c-bet of $65. I don't like the c-bet whatsoever. I think on a board like this, it's going to definitely crush the middle position a whole lot more. And if I get raised, like, what do I just do? Like, fold that much equity? I mean, I probably have to because my hand's not good enough to call. So I think by just checking and calling a bet just works way better. It protects myself when I have aces or kings. But either way, we're going to have to live with what the hell we did. So luckily for us, the older gentleman decides to make the fold, who I was mostly worried about. And the straddler makes a call. And we're going off to a turn card that comes another jack. Okay, so at this point, with the action checked over to me, I think about it for some time, see if there's any merit in betting here. I think there isn't. My hand's okay enough to get the showdown, and I just don't want to be blasting off into an opponent that just probably isn't in the mood to fold. So I end up making the check, and we're going off to a river card that comes an ace of clubs. Nice, so we end up making our straight, and with the action checked over to me, after a bit of thinking, I decide to make a value bet of $125. It is at this point, as I'm putting out the money, that I realize 2 things. There's 3 jacks on the board, and there's a flush on the board. Gosh darn it. I didn't realize it. This is what happens when you play way into the night, when you're not comfortable and you're not well rested. I couldn't even get out my bet fast enough. My opponent pretty quickly makes a call. I just don't think he's ever going to fold a 10 there, pocket pair there. He's just, people don't like folding boats. Our opponent ends up showing pocket 7s after I expose my straight. Boat is good, sir. Unfortunately there, as you guys can see, $200 or $300 lost in a situation where if I was paying more attention, I could have at least saved another $125 on the river, let alone the simple fact that I should probably be not betting that flop. Either way, some reasonable poker, some shitty poker, but I guess the reason you guys click on it is for the entertainment. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. I appreciate you guys very much for constantly coming through and supporting us. I'm very excited for our meetup game in October 15th at 1 p.m. at the Hustler. Otherwise, let's throw it over to me in person. Let's see how the hell we feel after booking a really solid win. Much needed, of course.
Well, that session was really interesting and for a lot of different reasons. Like I said, that was my very first time ever playing the 5-5-10 game, and it ended up being 5-5-10-20 the entire time. And man, if you're not from the Southern California area, nothing of what I'm gonna say next makes any sense. If you guys are from SoCal, you guys are familiar with the 20-40 game. You know that's not 20-40 blind limits, that is the max buy-in. You might be asking yourself, what the hell are the blinds if it's $20 and $40 buy-in? $20 to $40 buy-in. The answer to that question is the blinds are 1-2. They still rake like $5, $6 a pop, which is egregious. You can only have 20 big blinds in this game. It becomes absolute insanity. The game is super swingy, obviously, and you can't beat the game. Like, what are we talking about, right? The reason I tied this all in is that it felt like that tonight. There was some absolute shenanigans, absolute bananas. I mean, dude, the very first hand we played, we get called down on a flush board, paired board by third pair with no diamond. Like, I don't know. But anyways, the numbers are what's important, guys, and I'm really happy to report that for a game that only has an $800 max, we were in for 800 exactly. I was, that's just the most I could buy for. That is the table max. And we were out for 27.25, nearly $2,000 profit, played for 2 to 3 hours, not bad. First time we sit down, we flop a flush, that was awesome. And then we went card dead for freaking ever. Ended up making some really solid little plays today, and I really hated the way I played the last hand, mostly because I just misread the freaking board. I didn't see that the jack came for the boat, and I didn't even notice that the ace of clubs was on the river for a flush. So pretty bad there, but otherwise, it wasn't whatever. It is what it is, right? I want to thank you guys dearly for getting to this part of the video. And the other thing I really want to mention briefly is, if you guys, as we talked at the beginning of the video, I'm hosting the meetup game October 15th at the Hustler Casino, which is a Saturday. Mark the date, guys. You guys should be able to call in, put your name down for the list. Now, again, it'll be 1-2 deep stake. Should be an absolute blast. Otherwise, from the Gardens Casino, I bid you guys a farewell. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. The rest of your week, actually, would be even better.
Thank you guys as always. Stay happy, stay healthy, and more importantly, guys, run good at the tables. Deuces.